on board.
Great. Okay, I would like to call the regular council meeting of April the 27th to order. Obviously, it's electronic meeting again. CAO, are there changes to the agenda or any new items to bring forward?
I'll hand you over to Karen. I think we're going to move a couple of items up the order of the agenda. Karen, do you want to run through those?
Certainly. So there's no late items, Madam Mayor, but we are requesting that we amend the agenda by moving items 9.1 to 9.3 for consideration ahead of items 8.1 through 8.7. So that's the non-development reports coming ahead of the development.
Okay. Thank you. And I believe I made a mistake because I asked for the CAO, but normally I would ask you. So thank you for that, Karen.
No problem.
Okay, so thank you. Could I have a councillor bring forward adoption then, please, of the meeting tonight, the agenda? Councillor Holmes and Councillor Traynor, all in favor? Any opposed? All right, so that's carried. And then adoption of the minutes from the regular evening council meeting of March the 23rd, special council meetings of April the 1st and April the 3rd. Any changes or revisions that are required there? If not, could somebody bring that forward for adoption? Councillor Barkwell and Councillor Holmes, all in favor? Any opposed? No, so that's carried. Thank you. Back to you, Karen.
So, Madam Mayor, the public comment opportunity, is that the next item? We, of course, are holding the meeting electronically without public in attendance as permitted through Ministerial Order MO 83. So we are recording the meeting, as you know, and this will be posted to the District of Summerland website either this evening or first thing tomorrow morning.
Okay, I'll move on to my mayor's report, the next item on the agenda. It's a brief one this evening as the public health emergency continues to restrict events and gatherings. On April the 16th, 2020, Councillor Holmes and I attended the RDOS board meeting, and due to not verbal difficulties, but technical difficulties, the Corporate Services Committee meeting was postponed, was bumped actually to April the 3rd and will conclude this Thursday. Council held two special council meetings on April the 17th and 24th to continue discussing amendments to the district's 2020 budget. Council adopted a number of resolutions relative to deferral of property tax payments and reductions on water utility bills, because we know many in the community are experiencing financial difficulties during this time. Council trusts that this will provide some relief to Summerland residents and business owners. For more details, please check summerland.ca. Summerland, we are another 2 weeks closer to the end of this. Business owners and boards of nonprofit organizations are starting to develop recovery plans to get their staff back to work and open their doors to customers again. Dr. Henry is now suggesting that the province will begin lifting restrictions with caution and over a period of time. But following the directives of BC health experts appears to be working. On behalf of Council, thank you for your continued efforts to slow the transmission of the coronavirus. We're all looking forward to resuming our normal lives, however that might look. Be safe and continued health. Thank you. On to our CAO for his report.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. So just to keep the community update on district facilities, so we're still closed on all our facilities, but our City Hall or District Municipal Hall and our Works and Utilities buildings are still available for contacting staff and continuing on with business in the community. So please contact Municipal Hall for any inquiries moving forward. The staff of the district are holding up really well and really appreciate all the work that they've done over the last few weeks in really trying circumstances. So we've obviously been going through some pretty significant, I'll get the light out of my face, easier for me to see, pretty significant changes here at the district over the last couple of weeks and really appreciate the effort that the team has continued to put in to help serve our community and keep business as normal as possible, although with a little revised service level. We're in the process right now of putting together an updated level of service document that will be able to communicate with our residents and businesses over the next few weeks as well. So we'll have that information out hopefully by the end of this week for the community to see. Our capital projects, we've had a number of questions from the community around our capital budget priorities. So just to let everyone know that we're in the process of reviewing all of our capital priorities, and we'll be back in front of council over the next few weeks with more information on our capital budget priorities, recognizing the changes in revenue sources and priorities, obviously, for municipal council moving forward. So working with our team in finance and the senior management team, we'll have that information back in front of council over the next few weeks. We're our bylaw team, as we've mentioned before, are out and about on the weekend, keeping an eye on enforcing and educating the community with regards to the provincial orders around social distancing and use of businesses in the community. So our bylaw team were out on the weekend, and just a quick update on a couple of items there. So they were checking our breweries, cideries, and wineries. So keeping an eye on things out there, and really happy to say everyone's complying with the orders from the business point of view. No unreasonable non-compliance. A lot of education that our bylaw staff member is doing on the weekends, which was great to see. We have, like many in the community, seen an uptick in the users of some of our recreation trails in the community as well, particularly around some of the trailheads where it does get a little congested over and above what we would typically see on a normal weekend in the summer. We're seeing that occur during the week. So we're keeping an eye on that, working with our public works and fire department where some of the congestion exists to try and provide some additional signage and communication to alleviate some of the concerns, especially where there's an impact on the adjacent residents that live in those areas. We've had a number of questions around the dirt bike trails up at Trappers, which is at the north end of town. On Saturday, we had our bylaw team out there, and we had 12 trucks, one RV, a number of discussions and education discussions with individuals, recognizing that there is a portion of district land, but there's also private property that was being used there as well. So we've had some concerns identified there. No campfires identified, which was great to see. On Sunday, we had an increase, approximately 40, 45 vehicles and trailers up in that area as well. So some additional education around making sure there's no overnight camping and fires that take place in that area. So we're in the process of putting in some additional signage into those areas. It's really difficult to try and cordon off and eliminate access up to those areas, given the access on the roads and some of the private property that exists. However, staff have been in consultation with the private property owner and are looking at some additional signage over the next little while as well. Councillor Traynor, a question?
Carlson.
Councillor Carlson, yes.
Okay. I was just wondering if we're aware of any other jurisdictions that maybe have closed or somehow encouraged this traffic to move towards Summerland, and if it's simply that people can't do the other things that they're normally used to doing, so they're going out on their dirt bikes. Do we know, and is there something we can do to make sure it doesn't become a really big problem?
Yes, so through Chair, Madam Mayor, with Central Okanagan regional district have had messaging around closure of their public trails and larger park facilities. So we're working with the regional district and looking at potential for similar messaging, but trying to keep it as consistent as possible over the next little while. Anecdotally, we've heard from some of the property owners up there that there are people coming from outside of the Summerland area to use the trails, given that they are somewhat open compared to the messaging that they're seeing up in the Central Okanagan. So that there's an element of truth to that assumption, I guess. But we'll need to certainly be aggressive in our communications around how those spaces are used, especially as we enter the hotter part of the season, the May long weekend coming up as well. So we're looking at putting together a joint communication with the regional district, and we should have more information on that over the next week as well. And so yeah, by the way, we're busy on the weekend, and we're certainly intending on keeping that momentum, especially on the education side of things, take place over the coming weekends as well. So that wraps up my operational update. If there's any further questions, please let me know.
Councillor Van Elfen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Question through to our CEO. Any updates at all for Enius Creek, Trout Creek, snowpack levels? Where are we at? Are we still in danger, or are we out of the woods?
So thank you for that question. I'll let, I don't know if Chris can jump in. We're expecting some updated results in the next couple of days, I believe. But Director of Works and Services, maybe Chris, you can provide a bit of an update on where things are at.
Yeah, so we'll be doing our next snow course survey this week. Coming into the last couple of weeks, temperatures have been fairly moderate and not a lot of precipitation. And so where we were sitting at about 125 to 30% at the start of April, things have started to melt, but currently we still have sufficient room in Garnet Valley Dam. We are seeing a rise in that level, but we still have plus or minus about 5 feet of storage. And then on the Trout Creek side, we are starting to spill on some of our upper reservoirs, and Thirsk will be spilling shortly as well if it hasn't already over the weekend. But no concerns on that system. But yeah, with Enius Creek, still things look promising, but it's a lot dependent on the weather, whether it's a hot spell or a significant amount of precipitation up on that high snowpack that could cause that to change. But I'll be able to give a more thorough update following the snowpack survey results this week.
Any other questions for either Chris Johnson or the CAO on his report? While we're on this topic of snowpack and melt, Councillor Van Elfen, were you able to attend the snow survey seminar or webinar that was held on the 16th?
No, Madam Mayor, I was not.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Councillor Carlson, I just wanted to thank you again for bringing forward the information about trappers again and passing that along to our CAO, because that's helpful for all of us in Summerland.
Can I just add one thing to that?
Absolutely.
I know that the Bald Range isn't Summerland, but apparently they're starting to see quite large numbers of people out in the RDOS regions as well. And so I just, as long as it's being taken into account and paid attention to, we need to be not just worried about, traffic congestion, but I think the environment and also the danger if something does happen way out there. It could be really devastating. So it's just something that we all need to think about a little bit, I think.
Okay, if there are no further questions on the CA report, we will move on to the non-development reports, beginning with the 2019 audited financial statements. Dave, I'll pass this over to you to do your bit and introductions. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before I begin my presentation, I do need to advise Council and the public that the draft statements that were posted with this agenda last week had a minor transposition error in them. Page 2 of the statements showed that the health services expense line item had a budget amount of just over $1 million, and the planning and development expenses had a budget of $127,000. Those two amounts were transposed, so the health services budget should have been $127,000, vice versa for the planning and development one. So we have made this this change. We fixed this, and the agenda that is currently online shows the appropriate amount. So I just wanted council to know that in case there were any questions as to why there was such a large discrepancy with those numbers. So now for my brief presentation. Canadian audit standards require that those with recognized authority have asserted that they have taken responsibility for the financial statements prior to the issuance of an audit report. The district's auditors, BDO Canada LLP, have completed their audit work and are prepared to issue an unqualified opinion that the financial statements fairly represent the financial position of the District of Summerland as at December 31st, 2019. Once council has approved and accepted the statements, BDO will formally issue their opinion. Prior to handing the presentation over to Mario Perotti, who's a partner with BDO Canada and the engagement partner for the district's audit, I wanted to briefly comment on the statements overall. The financial statements reflect a continued improvement in the financial position for the District of Summerland. Two financial indicators that I want to highlight this evening are net financial assets and reserves. So net financial assets measure a municipality's ability to cover its financial liabilities with its financial assets at any given point in time. The district's 2019 financial position reflects net assets of $4.3 million. This is strengthening its position from the $2.3 million net debt that we reported in 2018. So the two largest factors driving this positive change were the district's operating surplus of $6.6 million, as well as the proceeds on the sale of a tangible capital asset of $2 million. So that was the piece of land that we sold for $1.9 million. On the reserve side, district reserve funds at the end of 2019 totaled $26.5 million, which was an increase of $5.8 million over 2018. This increase in reserves is primarily attributed to the district not spending budgeted funds on specified projects, but it also takes into account the parcel of land that we did sell, which total, again, proceeds on that piece of property are $1.9 million. And those that $1.9 million was transferred into the land sale reserve account for future capital projects. So now I would like to call on Mr. Perotti to provide council with BDO's overall comments on the district's financial statements and their audit findings. Mario?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council, for having me this evening. And it's nice to finally meet you, albeit virtually tonight. I'm hoping that when life returns to normal, that I'll be able to come out and actually see you in person for next year's audit. Now I'm just going to share my screen just so that it'll be easier to follow along. But as Dave mentioned, we're here to present the financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2019. I'll go through the financial statements in a bit more detail and open it up for any questions that you have. And then when we're completed, I'll let you know how the audit findings went and how the actual audit went. It was a virtual audit. We did all of our field work in March remotely, and after we had completed our in-person visit back in December. So we're going to start on page 3, which is management's responsibility for financial reporting. And to me, this is actually one of the most important pages in your financial statements, but it's one that's often overlooked. And between management's responsibilities and our independent auditor's report, it set the table for who is responsible for what in an audit, because management has their responsibilities, members of council through the community charter have their responsibilities, and I, as your external auditor, have certain responsibilities. The first is that management is ultimately responsible for the preparation of the financial statements and all the underlying records, all the assumptions, disclosures that go into it. Our role is to conduct our audit on it. Management helps prepare the financial statements by having a quality set of internal controls so that they know that as the numbers are aggregated throughout the year and built up, that you're getting accurate reporting. Mayor and council are required to oversee the audit and to oversee management. And if there's any tiebreakers, any disagreements between management and myself, ultimately you would be responsible for breaking that tie. I'm happy to say that there were no disagreements. And also, mayor and council is responsible for ensuring that management is actually having proper internal controls and having the actual reporting throughout the year as well. And if we move on to the next page on our independent auditors report, as was mentioned, these financial statements are currently marked as draft because I cannot complete the audit unless they are passed in a public council meeting by mayor and council, because you are ultimately taking responsibility tonight for the financial statements. And it's important to remember too that you are able to have full discussions with me, and I am engaged by you, not by management. Even though I signed our contract with management, I report directly to mayor and council, which is what I'm here to do tonight. And so we'll move on to page 6, and we're going to start looking at the actual numbers. And as David had mentioned, you did have a strong financial year this year. We did see an increase in both your financial assets from 26 million to 33.3 million, which is a result of, there was a plan to have a bit of a surplus to increase the reserves this year. And also we saw that last year it was the tail end of the some large capital projects, and we had a significant amount of revenue coming from the federal government on the final completion of the grants in these projects. So that's why we saw that your accounts receivable decreased from 7.9 million to 4.4 million. And likewise, we're seeing increases in cash and in your investments. I'll also quickly pause on your portfolio investments just to comment. In these uncertain times, I know that there's a lot of talk about what's happening in the market with investments. Your investments are all guaranteed, so there is no risk that you have right now in terms of loss on your investments. And then also what was highlighted was the net financial assets, which was went from a debt position of 2.3 million to an asset position of 4.3 million. Part of that was funded by the sale of the properties, but it was also having that planned surplus for the year. And then when we look down, we have the accumulated surplus of $119 million. And what this number represents is this is the wealth that you have in your community. It has the amount that you've invested in your infrastructure and your tangible capital assets, less any debt. That makes up 98 million of that number. And then you have 25 million that is sitting there in reserves and in unrestricted surpluses, which is money available for future years. Moving on to the statement of operations and accumulated surplus, now we'll get a picture of the total revenues and expenditures that you had for the year. And you can see that your revenues were up slightly this year from 36 million to 38.6 million. Part of that was the gain that you had when you sold the piece of land, but you were down from the budget of 52 million. And the reason why you were down from the budget plan was that you had $16 million in government transfers, which were for infrastructure grants. The two main projects, there was $6 million for the solar project and battery and storage grant, and then the voltage conversion project for 6.6 million. So that is why those projects didn't proceed this year. The grant money didn't come in. So we had a shortfall on our revenue from that. But over and above that, we also saw that everything else came in closely aligned with budget, and there were no significant variances. And looking at your expenses for the year, we do see that expenses were up from 31 million to 32 million this year, down from budget of 37 million. And really the only item that jumps out there is we have under environmental services, you can see that the budget was overspent. You had a budget of 1.8 and 2.2 million. But what's important to remember here is that you also have your landfill liability that you deal with. And so over time, as the landfill is used up, management has to come in and estimate what is the cost of closing the landfill and recognize an expense today based on how much usage there is. That number changed and increased this year by $600,000, which is why you're showing as overspent. If it wasn't for that, you would have been under budget like you were in all of your other major categories. And so what happened this year is that the discount rates that we use to estimate what the cost of closing the landfill 50 years now will be changed. And that change caused the increase in your liability. So it's not that the cost estimate changed or anything like that. It was just the estimate in terms of what the time value of money is changed. And so when we bring it down to the end, we ended up with an annual surplus this year of $6.5 million versus an annual surplus of 5.1 last year. You had a budget of 14 million. This is for accounting purposes. And so that 6.5 million is what David said was transferred to the reserves, which was planned. But excuse me, also remembering that when you passed your budget bylaw last year, you did not pass an annual surplus of 14 million, you passed a balanced budget. And as a reminder, the way that you're required to pass your budget bylaw pursuant to the community charter does not line up with how you show the budget on the financial statements. The reason for that is on the financial statements, we don't expense things like your tangible capital assets or your capital projects. They become an asset. So if you're going to have a large capital project and you're going to have grant funding, you're always going to have a large surplus. You also don't expense on the financial statements repayment of debt and creation of reserves and adding money to the reserve accounts. But those are expenses within your budget and your budget bylaw. So that's why we ended up with a large surplus, even though you passed a budget bylaw and everything was well aligned to your budget. Now, I want to move ahead, and we're going to jump ahead just for the interest of time to the notes, and one note in particular. And of course, we're in these uncertain times with the global pandemic, and because of the uncertainty that creates, we actually had to create a note disclosure highlighting the impacts of COVID-19 on the municipality and the potential impacts on your financials going forward. Now, this note is a fairly general note, and the reason why it's left general is that in looking at your responses so far, there haven't been any significant changes. Obviously, working from home, changes to staffing, those have happened, but we're not seeing things like, at this point in time, things like the property tax rate changes, significant deferrals in the property tax dates. We haven't seen any increased borrowing or revenue anticipation bylaws. It's not saying that these things won't be coming, but as of today, we're seeing that right now it's a fairly generic thing. So I just want to pause and ask Council, is there anything that you feel should be added to this note in terms of specific responses to COVID from a financial perspective?
Either Mario or David, I will ask you to, oh, I guess David, you can't do it either. While you have something on the screen, I'm not able to see who may have their hand raised, Mario. So oh, okay. Any thoughts on that clause? Okay, I don't see anyone's hands up. So, oh, yeah, Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, thank you. Just that I guess you are aware that we have say reduced our water rates, and that we are delaying. We probably won't be getting the some of the penalties that we're accustomed to getting in the past. So I'm sure that you've talked to our finance director about all this, and you're aware of that, and you've taken that into consideration in that statement.
Yes, we have. We actually had a call earlier today and reviewed where you were at this point. You know, when I look at some of the responses that some of the other communities have had, I mean, if you go up Highway 97 to the city of Kelowna, passing a $150 million revenue anticipation bylaw is a significant item. Right now, you've been adjusting your course and making sure that, you know, there's been some modifications, but it's not that, you know, say some communities, they may have dropped their property tax rates by, you know, from a 5% increase to a 0% increase. So those are the types of things that are more significant that we're looking at.
Anyone else? Okay, if you could carry on, Mario.
Okay. So those were actually the comments that I had on the financial statements themselves. Before I go into discussing the audit and the audit results, I just want to ask if there were any questions on the numbers themselves or any other areas that you'd like me to take a deeper dive into.
Councillor Trainer.
Hi, Mario. I just have a quick question. I'm just curious, why would a note about COVID go into this financial statement if this is for 2019? And we're dealing with COVID in 2020.
So there's COVID is, so the accounting rules have the concept of subsequent events that would help the users understand the financial statements. So at the time where we're at today, COVID has become a significant item that has impacted the district. And so we want to alert people to the fact that there are items that have happened since between the date of the financial statements and today, that things could change in the future because these statements are 3.5 months old. Now, if you were to take this a step further, and if you are a provincial government entity where you're at a March 31st year end, now you're at a point where the subsequent event changes because you have something that could impact, and we could be changing your numbers and your assumptions because of it, because COVID happened before your year end. So this is more just an information item, but it's not anything that, because COVID is 2020, is not going to impact the numbers. We're just bringing it to people's attention.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Barkwell?
Yes, a couple of questions if I could, and I want to preface it with just one sort of observation or remark. I can't get too excited about the 2 million contribution to our net liability, or our reduction in liabilities from the sale of the land, because it's really just changing the nature of one asset from land asset to a cash asset. So our position hasn't really changed too much from that sort of a transaction. I was wondering, and I guess this is more of a question for David, if he could just comment on some of the larger differences in our expenditures, such as, say, the water services were about $1 million under budget. You know, what was happening there? Was it, you know, a partially completed capital item, or, and then a couple others as well?
Councillor, I do not have my file or anything even closely with me to answer such a question. If you had specific questions that you would like answers to, I please email them to me. But like to generalize as to why an item is a little less than, or $1 million less, it's very difficult to answer that question right now. When you look at our water fund, we've got probably 25 different cost centers there. And I unfortunately haven't memorized all of our actuals to budgets yet. So if you could shoot me an email, I can absolutely provide you detailed answers, but off the fly like this, I cannot answer that question.
So you think it's an accumulation of quite a number of items rather than any one significant item there?
Correct.
So,
yeah.
And then he's already spoken to the difference in the environmental services, and the protection services was about $3 million under budget. Does anything jump out there, or is that the same story?
What jumps out on the protective services is specific to the RCMP. So throughout the course of 2019, we were never at a full complement of RCMP staff. So we would have seen some significant savings there because of our full complement is 9. And as you're aware, we didn't have a sergeant for, I think, half a year, if not longer. So those savings, we had budgeted for those costs, but of course, with not having an individual in that position, we didn't have to pay those costs. So that's the biggest thing that jumps out at me on protective services.
I'm trying to remember a conversation we had about protective services a couple of years ago, maybe. Is any sort of a surplus in that account? Does it go into a reserve strictly for protective services? Because we were speaking about the potential cost if there's like a murder investigation or something, it gets, you know, really huge, and we are responsible locally. And we had that discussion with Superintendent Jagger at one time.
Yeah, I remember that conversation, and the way our the district's budget currently works is we do not set aside any reserve funds if our budget exceeds our if our actuals are less than our budgets. what happens is any savings from a budgetary perspective will roll into an accumulated surplus account, which then those accumulated funds could be used in any given year if the district did have a murder investigation and we were very high over budget. We could absolutely use some of those funds to offset those additional costs. But to answer your question, we do not have a specific RCMP reserve fund.
Okay, thank you. And then one last question, if I could, for Mario. What is the sort of the thinking that goes into choosing the discount rate for the landfill? It was a $600,000 change. It was, 0.24%. How do you choose that number versus 1.5%?
That's based on the current cost of borrowing with the Municipal Finance Authority.
And can you relate it further?
So when we look at it, the Municipal Finance Authority had a significant change in their borrowing rates. So what we look at is we go in and project out, or say accountants will go in and project out based on, okay, if we had to borrow for this, then how would we go and fund it? And so that's the appropriate discount rate to use in this scenario. When we look at things like pensions, we use estimated investment rates as an example, because typically pensions are invested. And so that's why in this case, because it's a capital item, we use the discount rates.
So our cost of borrowing has gone down to, I guess it would be for only any new borrowing, but it's gone down to 0.24%. Is that where things are these days?
The MFA, they had a large reduction this year. And David, can you correct me on that one?
It went down by, I think it was close to 1 percentage point overall.
Well, I guess it must have been something like that. That's interesting.
Yeah, it went from 1.46% in 2018 to 0.24% in 19. So
wow.
just over 1.2%.
Good time to do some long-term borrowing.
Any other questions for Mario about the audited statements? Mario, I have just one, and it kind of falls along with what Councillor Barkle was just asking. The landfill closure expense that you were just talking about, that is calculated every year?
Correct. Well, the calculation is updated every year. The actual cost of closing the landfill itself was based on a survey done by the engineers back in 2015. One of my comments was that this is an item that we believe should be updated,
Yes.
once life gets back to normal. So each year it's we use the base calculation in terms of the estimated cost to closure, and then we look at the number of years left and what the capacity changed is, which is measured constantly to update the calculation itself. And we actually went in and did our own analysis of it, and because this is an estimate, our numbers were slightly different than management's numbers, and it was $30,000 different. So we didn't propose to adjust it, just because we went through and calculated it the way we would, and we were off slightly. And I provided the feedback on it if they want to adjust their methods next year or leave it.
Okay, thank you. So did you need to say anything more, Dave, or are we ready to bring this forward?
I don't need to say anything further, Madam Mayor, but I do think Mario wanted to speak a little more on their audit findings report, just to kind of let council know what they found, and so I'll let Mario quickly.
Good, thank you.
Okay. So if it's okay, I'll share my screen again just to make it easier to
Yes.
follow along. So we went through the numbers themselves, and now this is my report and reporting how the audit went to you. And again, if there's questions in terms of how we tested, what we did, I'm happy to answer any of them. So So when we look at this, we have the status of the audit is that now we are substantially complete. We have a signed letter that we're going to have to receive from management back just for them confirming all the significant items that we discussed throughout the audit. We completed our subsequent events work today. And then, of course, we need to have approval of financial statements by Mayor and Council. And I had previously issued our audit planning report back in February, and I'm happy to report that nothing has changed in terms of our audit approach from our first report to our final report, which is actually exceptional in terms of how management prepared for the audit, because typically in a first-year audit scenario, we're always making changes, but they were very good at feeding us the preliminary information back in December such that we were able to execute as planned. The other item that we communicated back in February was materiality. And materiality for an accountant is a concept that allows us to scope the audit. And basically, the idea behind it is how big of an error could there be for somebody who's reading your financial statements to be worried about it or to change a decision that they've made. We've measured it based on a percentage of your revenues and came in at $750,000. This is lower than what your materiality has been in past years. And that's because as this was our first year auditing, I wanted to have a lower number just as the first year as we get to know you. Next year, I anticipate the number will go up. And now the idea behind materiality though is that it's not that we're not looking at anything below $750,000. It drives how many samples we're pulling. It helps when we look at things like the landfill liability and we come up, management has one number, we have another. Under the concept of materiality, we're close enough that we're okay to accept management's number when it's an estimate. So that's what it's there for. Then under the audit findings, we also have the significant areas of risk that we have. And in an audit, because we can't test everything, we'll go in and we'll look at the areas of higher risk. Where there's more risk, we'll do more testing, we'll do more targeted testing. The three main areas that we looked at were management's override of control. And we look at this in every audit because management, your director of finance, is in a position where he can circumvent controls. So we designed tests to make sure that that isn't happening and we didn't detect any such instances. We also have revenue recognitions. Your funding agreements are complicated and subject to a lot of judgment. We spend a lot of time testing in there. Again, we didn't have to make any adjustments, nor did we find any errors. And then the last one, landfill liability, because again, as you can see, very sensitive number. You're dealing with something that's 50 years in the future. We performed our testing on there. We had a slight difference, but that's because of how we interpret the calculations. And other than that, there was no issues. So happy to say that all of our procedures went as planned and didn't have any significant findings. Internal control matters. Because we're going in and looking at your audit, we're going to notice any internal control issues and we'll report them back to management. If there were any significant matters or where there was a major control deficiency, such as your payroll system isn't functioning as it should, we'd be reporting them back to council. There were a couple of minor items, but nothing that was worth reporting back to. So, and then as your independent auditor, we are confirming that we are independent of the district as required under the Canadian auditing standards. Then the other item that I think bodes well for your finance team is that there were no adjustments posted or required by us in the audit and no unadjusted differences that we left behind. So the numbers did come in as they presented them to us initially. Then there's fraud discussions, and fraud is something that an audit is not designed as a tool for you to use to prevent or detect fraud within the district. That's what your internal controls are. That's what your oversight as council is there for. But just because an audit isn't designed to prevent or detect fraud doesn't mean that as an auditor I can turn a blind eye to it. We again have targeted procedures that we do to perform to ensure that there's no fraud in the district. And I'm happy to say that we did not find any instances of fraud. That being said, I am required to ask council if you have any concerns over fraud suspected or alleged.
Councillor Van Elfen.
No, I do not.
I think that we're safe to proceed on that. I'm not aware of any either. So unless council knows something that the rest of us don't know, I think we're okay to carry on. Thank you.
Perfect. I always appreciate when we get that awkward little reaction where we aren't, everyone's looking uncomfortable because they're thinking about it. So that's good. Okay, just quickly, we'll go back to, we've talked about the audit findings and internal control matters. And so now the last item to talk about is just other required communications. You know, again, we talked about that there weren't any material misstatements. There weren't any uncertainties that we had whether or not the district would be able to continue a district agreements with management. There wasn't any instances of non-compliance with laws or regulation, whether it's community charter, local government act, or other legislation. No significant related party transactions, and that includes, we look at transactions with council as well, and didn't find anything significant. Management didn't consult with any other accountants, and there were no other matters. Now, that being said, before I close off my presentation, there are two things that I want to highlight, and one of them is there is a significant new accounting standard that's going to be coming in over the next few years, and it's dealing with asset retirement obligations. And I want to make sure the council's aware, and I'm happy to, in the fall, talk to you about this in more detail. But what's going to happen is this is the next evolution of asset management. About, I want to say 9 years ago now, it's been a while since tangible capital assets came in and we started recording all the infrastructure assets on the financial statements before they weren't there. Now we have to start looking at what are our legal obligations to decommission our assets. And so that means if you have asbestos and dealing with things where if you are leasing an asset and you have to, there's a cost to decommissioning it, landfill liability calculations are going to change. It's a very, very significant item that is going to take your finance team to work with public works, engineering, and make sure that you're working towards inventorying all of that so that we can start recording it on the financial statements. So I did want to highlight this because it will be taking a lot of effort. Whether you're doing this all internally, whether you hire consultants, that'll be something that David will talk to you about. But the standard is coming, and we'll be providing any resources we have to help them along with that. The other item I just wanted to do on a happier note is, I mentioned it a couple times as we went through, a big thank you to David and the finance team. They did a phenomenal job with the audit. You know, we had a sense that it was going to go well when we came out in person back in December, and then when we realized that we weren't going to be able to come in person in March, we were worried, but the audit went seamlessly. We met all the timelines. They worked very hard and made it very easy for us, and did a great job. It's very important. I feel that council hears that as somebody that's from the outside. That's my observation of your finance team. And with that, unless there's any other questions, that's all that I had.
Thank you. David, we've heard the accolades for your team. Thank you very much. Are you feeling as comfortable with BDO and Mario as they are with you?
Yeah, from, you know, and I can't take really any of the credit. Renee, my manager of finance, did a phenomenal job putting everything together. So in all fairness, she deserves all of the accolades, and I just sat back and watched. So, you know, all the kudos to her. We were very happy with the way the audit went, with the professionalism of BDO. You know, being an auditor in my past, yes, sometimes there's issues when you're going into a new client, and but from my perspective, everything went well, and the audit went smoothly, which is what we all wanted. So it was great.
Thank you. Well, through Mr. Haddad, the council thanks you for the work that you've done with your team, and also the work that you've done with Mario and BDO. So thank you for that. All right, there were no further questions, I take it.
Can you see me?
Sorry, I can see you now, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Barkville, thank you.
Yes, I was wondering if, Mario, if the new audit standards that you referred to, would we require the district to compute the present value for the decommissioning of solar and battery storage?
That's a good question. I haven't looked at it. So if there is, which I presume that there is a cost that you would have to incur that is a result of a legal liability, which in this case would be environmental regulations, then yes, you would have that.
Okay, thank you, because it is a relevant issue.
Okay, any other questions for Mario or for Dave? Could I have someone bring forward the motion to approve these statements then, please? Councillor Patton? Could I ask you just to read it aloud, just for the benefit of people that may be watching this video after?
Absolutely. That the 2019 audited financial statements for the District of Summerland is attached to the report from the Director of Finance dated April 27, 2020 be approved.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Van Elfen. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, Council. And thank you, Mario. On to our next item, tax rates 2020 bylaw number 2020-004. Dave, did you want to speak on this?
Sure, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
So as Council is aware, Council adopted the district's 2020 to 2024 5-year financial plan on February 28th, 2020. This plan included a 4% property taxation revenue increase for 2020. Now, since that time, the world has been in the throes of dealing with the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, not only from a social perspective, but from a financial perspective as well. Summerland Council has met numerous times over the past months, discussing alternatives in order to help Summerland residents through this difficult time. In terms of taxation, the financial impact of the approved 4% tax increase to the average residential property that's been assessed at $596,600 equates to $78.90 increase over the prior year. Now, the district is proposing to extend the property tax due date from the regular July 3rd to September 30th, thereby giving residents an additional 3 months to pay their property taxes. Penalties will be delayed until October 1st. So therefore, an average property could see a potential savings of about $168.30 by having the penalty moved 3 months. So in essence, if council was to leave the due date as was in July and someone couldn't make their payment, they would have got hit with that $168.30 penalty. However, now by allowing or extending the due date by 3 months, that $168 now is moved 3 months. So it gives people a lot more time to come up with some financial resources to pay their property taxes. So the attached 2020 tax rates bylaw is now ready for first 3 readings and adoption by council. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Dave. Questions of our Director of Finance, Council? Councillor Barkwell?
Not directly related to the tax rate, but it is something that it was mentioned here and last time. So the September 30th date we went with because the province passed a resolution of some kind or an order in council that foreclosures could be delayed for another year. This is my understanding. Is that correct, David?
It was an order by the minister to basically give municipalities the ability to delay the tax sale by a year.
Yeah, so are we going to do that, or are we going to discuss whether we're going to do that? Or, I mean, obviously we're delayed it by at least a month by choosing this date.
The opportunity is still there to potentially have the tax sale. as staff, what we would like to do is, as we get closer to that September, that fourth Friday or fourth Monday in September, we still want to go through the process of seeing, making sure that we have the opportunity and the ability to collect from residents. And we will be, if we get to a point where a tax sale needs to happen, we will definitely bring that forward to council and have you decide whether or not you want us to delay that for a year or what your decision would be. But at this point in time, I can't really say how many properties could potentially be up for tax sale. We haven't sent out our notices yet. We'll have a much better understanding probably in, I'd say, late August, if this due date gets extended.
You know, to go up for tax sale, it has to have been delinquent for like at least a year or 2 or 3 years already, right?
2 years, yes.
2 years. And have we ever had a tax sale before?
I'm sure, yes, we have. 2 years ago, we had a tax sale. But our staff are quite diligent in getting a hold of people and having them pay their taxes, especially when you let residents know that their house is going to get sold. But we did have one 2 years ago. Now the tax sales rules do allow an individual or a property owner, it gives them a year from the time of the tax sale to actually come back and pay their property taxes. So it's not as if on that date the house is sold and you never see it again. There are mechanisms in place to ensure that that individual has the ability to be able to pay their taxes and retain their home.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Dave? All right, could I have someone bring forward the resolutions there, please? Councillor Holmes?
Can I do all 3 points at once?
What's your pleasure, Dave? Should we do the first two and then do the final adoption, or how should that be done?
I think I'll defer that to our corporate officer to answer that question. I don't know the legalese behind that.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam
Karen?
Chair. I think you're fine to read the three of them all at one time.
Okay, so I'll move that tax rates bylaw number 2020-004 being reduced and read a first and second time, and that tax rates bylaw number 2020-004 be read a third time, and that tax rates bylaw number 2020-004 be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes. Seconder? Councillor Patton, thank you. Any further discussion? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, on to item 9.3, or I guess maybe it's 8.3 now. Proposed mineral exploration application referral for Flow Metals Corporation. And I'm not sure if this should be, if you want this, Anthony, or just to put it straight through to Chris.
Right through to Mr. Johnson.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Johnson. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, so this report is to bring a referral notice to council for mineral exploration activities by Flow Metal Corp within our watershed. As per the attached map, it's approximately 3.5 kilometers northwest of Peachland Lake, right on the very north end of our watershed, just north of our headwaters lakes. The exploration activity that's being proposed is some cut lines with an induced polarization survey. So in the report, it notes an approximate area of 0.65 square kilometers and overall trenching of 480 meters. That's for one site. There's also a second site of the same area and about 330 meters of trenching that's being proposed. As with previous exploration referrals, staff is hesitant to support these and any further industrial activity within our watershed. Our desire, along with other districts such as the District of Peachland, is to get a comprehensive watershed assessment that's prepared by industry with proper stakeholder engagement to ensure that our interests are represented for future referrals that might come through from industry, and to make sure that we're on the same page from the get-go. So within the report, there's a few comments from previous, similar to previous referrals that have come in with regards to just following legislation, some requirements that we'd like to see around drilling, trenching, and access, as well as a few concerns with the specific application, just with one with the dates of the proposed activities. It had noted April 1st, 2019 as the start date, and only for 2 years moving forward. So a question around that and why that start date, if that was just an error. And then with First Nation engagement to ensure that West Bank First Nation is not only contacted, but also PIB and the Okanagan Nation Alliance. So staff are recommending that a letter of opposition be submitted back on this referral, and that if the notice of work is approved, that the recommendation within the letter are added as conditions to the notice of work and are required to be followed by the applicant. So if there are any questions from Mayor Council?
Councillor Van Alphen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Did we not send a letter of concern a while ago about this mining proposal, or is it another one?
No, not on this one. There was a previous one with Troubadour that had come in and they had presented to council. That was a separate application than this.
Follow-up question, Councillor Van Alphen?
Please, Madam Mayor. So with the Troubadour one, we sent a letter, and it was a letter that was sent by mistake that was opposed. Then we corrected that, saying that we were concerned. Could we not do the same here and ask them to come and present to council? Thank you.
Definitely. I think that can be a request that's made. Yeah, with this is just the initial referral that we get about their proposed activity. So as noted in the report, I think our stance is that until there's sort of an overarching plan that's conducted within our watershed, that we would be hesitant to support or be in favor of. But having them come to council and present the specifics of their operation and allow you guys to ask questions directly to them is definitely something worthwhile.
Councillor Barkwell?
Yeah, can we break, excuse me, break this discussion down into two parts here? We've got that the mining referral notice of work from Full Meadows be opposed, and then we've got a second part that a letter be sent to the Ministry of Mines and Energy and Petroleum, and it's all sort of one motion.
Councillor Barkwell, could I just interrupt for a second? This is the opportunity to ask questions of Chris. If you want to talk about the resolutions or the motions, please bring them onto the floor first.
Well, that's my point. I don't want to bring this particular motion onto the floor.
Well, bring another motion onto the floor then. But
Chris has brought some good points here, some interesting questions, and that a letter would be worthwhile. But you know, it's blended in with a letter of opposition. All right, and so I will make a motion that a letter be sent to Mines, Energy, and Petroleum, that petroleum resources outlining our concerns, and it's not clear here with this motion that recommended mitigation strategies be followed should the application be approved. It's not clear what the recommended mitigation strategies are. Is that for environmental mitigation, or is it because the people should have been contacted and we want to mitigate that oversight? Maybe Chris could tell us what he had in mind there.
Yeah, so the intent would be to outline the 6 items that were listed in the report. One, just ensuring that legislation and regulations are followed. Then there's some specifics around drilling, mechanical trenching, and access if those activities are approved. and then the timelines and the First Nations engagement clarification. So basically, the draft letter would contain those 6 items.
All right, I'll make that presented with, and with that understanding.
And so you're making the motion just on the second part, the and that part?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Van Alphen? Okay, thank you for bringing that onto the floor, and let's have further discussion around there. Anyone? Councillor Holmes.
Just a question, actually. So would that letter include a request for an overarching plan for the watershed, like the bigger picture, rather than just looking at this specific project?
Not with this applicant specifically, but the intent would be to raise that issue with the ministry, to say that, and likely it would be a good point to possibly join with Peachland and just say our watersheds abut each other, and we would like to see an overarching plan be produced by industry for that area, but not necessarily putting it on this one single applicant.
Okay, but we're writing the letter to the ministry here. To me, that's the issue. Really, that's what we need. This is what we ought to be working on and lobbying on and talking to the province about. And so, you know, maybe that's a separate letter. I don't know, but or else we can include it in this letter. But somehow, I think that's the message we need to get across to the province.
Yeah, I guess my point was just that we wouldn't hold up this or tie that requirement specifically to this application is all, but to use this as another opportunity to raise that concern with the ministry.
I think that if we do proceed that way with an overarching plan, as you've suggested and Councillor Holmes is supporting, that the District of Peachland would be a great municipality to collaborate with, as would the ONA and the West Bank First Nation and Penticton Indian Band specifically. I think that would, I think that they are as concerned as we are, based on the information that we have received from them in the past in terms of their opposition to mining exploration. And getting a comprehensive plan in place, I think, is a good way to you know, make it kind of open up a level playing field so that everyone understands what everybody else is doing. Any other, Councillor Barkwell, and then I'll go back to Councillor Traynor.
Yeah, I suppose, I mean, an overarching plan, it sounds like a good idea, but I'm wondering exactly what that might mean, different things to different people. Certainly the largest use of the land up in that area in our watershed is forestry, far and away, about 50 times the impact some mining exploration has. Of course, if mining exploration turned into a mine, that would be different. Recreational use, hunting use, there's so many different uses. Is this what, you know, the council envisions should be done? Say, a discussion, are we going to have mining exploration in this area or not? Are we going to allow logging in this area or not? Is that the discussion and an overarching plan?
Councillor Holmes, did you have a response to Councillor Barkwell, or do you have a new question?
Well, yes.
Okay. Well, if you want to provide your response, that would be great. And then, but then we need to go to Councillor Traynor because it's her turn next.
Well, that was my response.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Holmes. Councillor Trainer.
I'm just wondering if we should have, if staff would like, or if council wants to have another motion that would direct staff to work with Peachland and First Nations to send a letter about an overall plan. And so we have a separate letter for that. And then we have a letter specifically to do with this proposal, because I feel like we're going to be getting more proposals as we move. I mean, this is the second one, and I'm sure there will be more. So I think if the sooner we can get started on some kind of plan would be really good. And then finally, I was going to ask if Karen could read back one more time the motion that Richard put on the table.
Certainly. That a letter be sent to the Ministry of Mines, Energy and Petroleum Resources outlining our concerns and recommended mitigation strategies as outlined in the report of the Director of Works and Utilities dated April 27, 2020, to be followed should the application be approved.
Okay, so it's the one that's on written then. Okay.
And just added the as outlined in the report, just so it's clear.
Right. Okay. I guess, sorry, just to add on that then, I would just ask everyone else if they're interested or think that we should send another letter in the next while that covers this broadly.
Councillor Trainer, could I have you just to put that on hold for a minute?
Sure.
So that we can have the discussion and the vote on this resolution, and then I welcome you to bring forward another one. Thank you. Any further questions? I don't see anyone's hand. Oh, Councillor Holmes, thank you.
Just a question of the wording of the motion. If we're just having the second half of the motion, shouldn't we, for the record, shouldn't it be say what it is we're talking about? That being mining referral notice with the tracking number, shouldn't that be in the motion? I can let you clean it up. It's just because the motion, the way it just stands, if that's the motion, it doesn't put it in context of what we're referring to. So somebody reading the minutes, future minutes, they won't know what we're talking about.
Chris, you might need some clarification there because, yeah, I'm wondering if that was the comment you made about separating, not dealing with this one referral, but doing the second thing. Are you wanting this to be the letter to the ministry in response to the referral, or is this a letter to the ministry that's different from the referral we've received?
My understanding is that this was going to be for this application, but
Okay.
not specifically state opposed.
Okay.
Is that correct, Councillor Barkwell?
Yes, that's kind of an oversight on my part when I made the motion. I should have. So I'll make an amendment to this motion, and we can vote on that amendment. And that amendment is that this letter be in reference to the notice of work from Flow Metals, tracking number 100246696.
Okay. So we've really put the two together into one.
Well, not entirely.
Yeah, yeah, except the opposed.
So anybody going to second my motion that we're just clarifying that it's related to this application?
Yeah. Councillor Holmes has seconded that. Any further, sorry, my dog is whining to go for a walk. Any further discussion on this? Okay, I just wanted to say that I will not be voting in favor of this because I completely agree with staff's recommendation that we oppose this. We have every right to do that. It doesn't mean that it's not going to happen, of course. And we've already got a subsequent letter going through to the ministry if it is approved. just putting in what we'd like to see in terms of mitigation strategies. The reason I'm saying that is because I really think that we do need to collaborate with our neighbors and get some kind of plan in place to protect our community watershed. So that's that. Councillor Barkwell.
Well, I think we're only really discussing the amendment to the motion at this time, and that's the amendment to clarify the motion that's on the table. And also, but going beyond that, if you want to put a second motion specifically stating our opposition, then we can have that discussion. But I would say that this is a minimum, and then that could be a further discussion. That was sort of what I was anticipating.
Okay, the reason I stated that is because as I started my comments, that is why I'm going to not vote in favor of this motion. Any other comments or for discussion? Councillor Barkwell.
I don't understand your reasoning why you wouldn't vote on the amendment to clarify the motion.
I'm not concerned about the amendment. I am concerned with the overall motion that is on the floor. And that is why I will be not voting in favor of it. And if I might say, that is my prerogative. Any further discussion? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? So that, oh, Councillor Holmes.
Were we just voting on the amendment there, or what are we voting on? We need to vote on the amendment. And then
That's what I'm saying.
So was everybody understanding that as they made their vote? Yes. Councillor Trainer, I see you nodding. Councillor Carlson. Okay. Everyone, okay, great. So that is carried. And so now, Karen, once again, do we need to, we voted on the amendment to the kind of new motion. Now we'll vote on the motion that Richard brought, or Councillor Barkwell brought forward. All right. All in favor? Oh, Councillor Van Elfen.
Can you please repeat the motion?
Okay, so the amendment added that, so shall I read the whole motion with the amendment? Okay, that a letter be sent to the Ministry of Mines, Energy and Petroleum Resources outlining our concerns with mining referral notice of work from Flow Metals Corp tracking number 100246696, and that the recommended mitigation strategies as outlined in the report of the Director of Works and Utilities dated April 27th, 2020 be followed should the application be approved.
Okay, Councillor Van Elfen? Good, thank you. Any further discussion on this motion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? So again, Councillors Trainer, Carlson and myself are opposed. This is carried. Oh, Councillor Carlson.
I'd like to put forward a motion, please, that mining referral notice of work from Flow Minerals Corporation tracking number 100246696 be opposed.
Seconder? Councillor Trainer? Okay, let's have discussion on this motion. Thank you, Councillor Carlson.
I just want to put it out there that I believe what the conversation was prior to this, the conversation we just had is really important, and I believe that we do need to have a comprehensive plan for our watershed. I understand the importance of getting copper and finding copper so that we can electrify our economy and the demand that is going up, and we need to have safer and more, for lack of a better term, ethical mining and resources, and that might be something we can do really well in Canada. However, in our watershed is not the right place to be having those explorations, especially if we don't have a proper comprehensive watershed management plan in place. And so until we see that plan, until we have that conversation with our neighbors and with our provincial government, I think that we need to be very cautious, because there are multiple very well-known mining companies in this country that are looking for copper and are looking to start mines. And maybe someday there will be one nearby, but it can't be done piece by piece. And it looks to me like this application was in the queue, and maybe there are more, as Councillor Traynor said before. So I would just take caution.
Further discussion or comments on this? Councillor Holmes. Councillor Barklow, could I just ask you to mute your mic when you're not speaking? Thank you.
Just a few things. One, I have a bit of trouble saying just having definitively we're opposed just because we're opposed. I think you'd have to say we're opposed until such a time that whatever is in place that where we could lift our opposition. To say we're just opposed means we never want it to happen ever, no matter what. And I don't think that's the right approach to take. I'd be very comfortable saying we're opposed until such a time that the community, or that the conditions that and our concerns are addressed. I think once those are addressed, exploration's fine, and then I would think that we need to work on getting that plan for the watershed in place before any actual mine is developed. And it's that's a timing thing, so there's no time to waste. But I don't think I can support something on just saying we're outright opposed.
Any further discussion? Councillor Carlson.
If that's the situation, then I'd like to see an amendment to the motion that will state our current opposition based on what Councillor Holmes just said. And then when this comes back for more conversation, if this does move forward, we can talk about whether we're still opposed or not. I don't know what that amendment might be, whether it's we are currently opposed or whether we are opposed until a management plan is in or until other conditions are met. Perhaps we are opposed until conditions are met. Does that satisfy Councillor Holmes? What you just said?
Councillor Holmes?
Well, I would suggest something like until our concerns, as outlined in the letter that we've just agreed to, are addressed.
I will make that amendment.
Is there a seconder for the amended motion? Councillor Holmes. Further discussion? Councillor Holmes?
This is basically what we did with Troubadour. We sent them a letter. The very initially, we had a lot of concerns, and we sent the letter saying that we were opposed until those concerns were addressed, and those concerns were addressed, and then we wrote them again, and they came and spoke to us. And I think it's all about ensuring that community engagement takes place, and that they're aware of that, and they're working with us. And I think rather than setting up some sort of us and them situation, we all ought to be working together. That's with our neighbors, but also with the companies and the government. And that's the way we're going to get through whatever it is we need to get through and get that plan to protect our watershed.
I would just like to say that I think that at least the way that I see my role is to do something that is in the best interests of the a majority of the people of Summerland. And in this particular instance, it is in the best interest of everyone that lives in Summerland, or at least everyone that lives in Summerland that drinks water from the Trout Creek watershed. So while I was in favor of sending a opposing the referral notice of work, I am not in favor of the amendment that is currently on the floor. So I will be voting against the amendment. I think we need to protect our watershed, and if that is done by developing a comprehensive watershed management plan, including all stakeholders, not necessarily just those in the mining industry, then I think that that's something that we need to do. That's my view.
I think you said Councillor Carlson. I'm just going to go first. So if, I just have a quick question then for clarity. If the motion on the table in opposition until further notice is defeated, will any letter go to the proponent, or will it simply be a letter that goes to the government? Because somehow we need to get a letter to the proponent.
So if I can just address that particular question before I go to Councillor Traynor. I was saying that I was in favor of the amendment that you initially put on the floor. I'm not in favor of the until conditions are met. I have no idea what the understanding is around what conditions need to be met. So that's why I would be opposed to the amendment, and that's what we're talking about. Councillor Traynor, I think you had your hand. Oh, you're good now. Councillor Holmes, and then Barkwell.
Well, the conditions, I think I said concerns, but the concerns are the 6 points that in Chris's letter, in the letter that we just approved in the previous motion.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Councillor Barkwell, and then Councillor Van Alphen.
Yeah. Just sort of as a point, and maybe it was understood by Karen, but the original motion didn't say send a letter. It just said that we were opposed, and I guess it's inferred then that this is in relation to we are going to send a letter, and that I would and I was kind of hoping that somebody would put it on the floor that we were going to invite the proponent to speak to us, and I'll make that motion later. And as far as the current amendment goes, I can see my way to supporting it. If they address the concerns, then we should be good.
Councillor Van Alphen, please mute your mic, Councillor Barkwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The first motion that we're concerned, and then we send a letter, is something I can support. The whole comprehensive watershed plan, to me, is a whole different issue. Just be opposed to this or opposed to the previous one that came to the table. Then are we opposed to mining? Are logging and recreation and forestry grazing for our ranchers? Are we opposed to everything? Until we have a comprehensive plan, I can't be opposed to everything. There's current businesses that are being conducted in those areas. Do we shut everybody down tomorrow, or do we, ask the government and look for funding so we can have a comprehensive plan done? But we can't afford to do it on our own. We're going to need our neighbors, but we're going to need the government involved also.
Councillor Van Elf, and if I can just respond to that, I believe I said when I was talking about the comprehensive watershed management plan that I wasn't referring specifically to the mining sector, but for all uses in our community watershed, because they all, to some degree, potentially can impact the quality of our water, which we're legislated to provide to our citizens. And there also needs to be included in that some consideration for the accumulative effects of having a number of different activities going on in our watershed. So again, I'm not saying that I'm opposed to mining specifically. What I am opposed to is continuing to have all kinds of activities occurring in our watershed without any way of I know that these referrals come to us, although we were missed in the first referral, and this is the fourth one now. But I think that, again, we are the stewards of community watersheds. And I don't mean just the District of Summerland, but also our neighbors that share our concerns about impacts in our community watershed. So that's what I meant when I said comprehensive plan. Councillor Barkwell?
Yeah, Councillor Van Alpen raises a good point that I hadn't really sort of formulated in my mind, and it's like, why are we picking on mining exploration versus all the other uses of the forest, like logging and stuff? I mean, why do you? Nobody's even telling you what sort of logging activities are taking place in our watershed, so that you can send a letter of opposition to it. And I would suggest that it isn't really reasonable to pick on one. So I think that this, certainly you do raise a good point. We need a wider based community discussion as just what sort of risks and benefits of our watershed are acceptable to the community. If you presented it to Princeton, where 50% work in the mine, it might be a different answer than Summerland, where we're retirees. But I feel like this is singling out one user of our land.
Councillor Holmes, I'll go to you in just a moment. I think that when you refer to the singling out one user of the land, or yeah, I guess of the land, not necessarily our land, but it's because this is a referral that has come forward to us. I know that, well, we all know probably that the province has reviewed the professional reliance model that they have been, that the previous government introduced some time ago, and have found that there are significant items that need to be addressed and discussed, and that's something that the province will be continuing to work on. So that is the model that allows the forestry companies through BC Timber Sales, which is provincially owned, to have those transactions made without referral to any municipalities. So the reason why we are so-called picking on mining is because that's the referral that is in front of us tonight on tonight's agenda. If another referral came through for a different kind of resource extraction, like forestry or something like that, then we could have this conversation based on that referral. But tonight, this happens to be the one that's in front of us. Councillor Holmes, I think you were next.
Yeah, I was going to say more or less the same thing. I agree totally. You know, it's we're just dealing with what's in front of us, and if we have, and if this is the way to hammer through our concerns, then this is the tool we use. If it's mining that's being referred, I think to me it's very simple. You know, we address our concerns. We're looking at this specific thing. We've got concerns. We're saying we're opposed until those concerns are addressed. And at the same time, we need to be working with our partners and the government to get that comprehensive plan in place for what which will address everything. And hopefully that plan can be in place before they strike copper and put a mine in. You know, to me, that's the way to do it.
Anyone else? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, yeah. Okay, Councillor Traynor.
I supported when I first read the staff report, I was in support of how those recommendations were presented. And I think until we have a comprehensive plan for our watershed, I'm opposed to adding any further activities. I know there's already activities there right now, like logging and recreation and everything, but I don't think that means that we just added potentially another one. So I will be opposed to this until we have a plan.
Any further discussion? Okay, Karen. Oh, Councillor Barkwell and then Councillor Van Elfen.
Could we have, now we're just discussing the proposed amendment to the motion. Could we have the amendment read out to us again, please?
Certainly. So the amendment is until concerns as outlined in the report of the Director of Works and Utilities dated April 27, 2020 are addressed.
Thank you.
Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is just exploration is what they're asking for today. They're just doing exploratory works, and it would have to come back to us again if they decided to open a full-fledged mine or if they found evidence of such. At this point, they're asking to do some, it's just exploratory. And yes, I'm concerned, but I'm not opposed. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Councillor Carlson.
Just in looking at the application, I think that it is lacking. I don't think that there's been a huge amount of effort and time put into telling not only municipalities but First Nations and having those conversations that are going to be so important. So if these people were to continue and do exploration and find that copper, there's a huge piece after that. And based on what I've seen so far, I don't know if they're prepared to have that, go through that engagement in that process. It's just kind of pushes aside a lot of the concerns that local communities may have. And so I'm, yeah, opposed.
I have a question for Chris. In the report, you talk about a discrepancy in a date. April 1st, 2019. Were you able to determine whether or not this is coming to us after the fact, or if indeed that was a typo? We're actually past April the 1st, 2022. So have you been able to figure that out?
No, I haven't. I haven't had any follow-up conversations with the ministry directly. Yeah, I can only assume it's an error. This is the first time we've seen this referral for this location. So.
Okay, thank you. So we are voting on the amendment then. That the mining referral notice of work from Flow Metals Corporation tracking number blah be opposed until Karen be opposed until our conditions as
Concerns as outlined in the report of the director dated April 27 are addressed.
okay, thank you. Any further discussion on the amendment? Councillor Van Alphen.
Are we even concerned? Are we going to invite them to come and visit with council and present, or just tell them we're totally opposed? Could we add that to the amendment, that we could invite them to present to council like we did with Troubadour?
As Councillor Barkwell suggested it a few minutes ago, anyone can bring forward a third amendment, or sorry, a third motion. I'm not sure how that would fit into the motion that's currently on the floor. Any consideration of adding to the amendment, Councillor Carlson? So that was a no. Councillor Barkwell.
I was just going to suggest that, it's a little simpler just to deal with this one and then make another motion inviting them after this motion.
Okay, so we're finished the discussion, are we? I don't see any hands up now. So we are voting on the amendment to the motion. All in favor? Opposed? Oh, I can't see Councillor Traynor. Okay, so that is, it was 4-3, so that one is carried. And now if we could vote on the motion as amended. Any further discussion? Councillor Barkwell?
Could you read the amended motion for us, please?
That the mining referral notice of work from Flow Metals Corp. Tracking number 1002466696 be opposed until concerns as outlined in the report of the Director of Works and Utilities dated April 27, 2020 are addressed.
Councillor Van Alphen, were you going to ask the same question or you had some other discussion? Councillor
No,
Van
Madam
Alphen.
Mayor, I think I made a mistake on the first motion. And I wasn't opposed to the, if someone could read the first motion before we go ahead and vote on them, because this is getting very complicated. The second motion is opposed. The first motion was concerned. Am I correct?
No, we voted on the amendment, and now we're voting on the motion as amended. The amendment was carried, and now we're voting on the motion that as amended.
Which is opposed.
Opposed until the conditions outlined in this letter or this staff report are met.
Thank you.
Are you, okay, thank you. Further discussion? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? So that motion is defeated. Councillor Barkwell, did you want to bring forward another motion?
Yes, I'd like to bring forward a motion that the staff write a letter to the proponent, whatever, GoFlow Metro, I don't remember their name, and inviting them to come and address council, explaining their project and the environmental, explaining their project and addressing the concerns in our letters sent to them. You're on mute, Tony.
Thank you, Councillor Barkwell. Is there a seconder for Councillor Barkwell's motion? Councillor Van Elfen. Thank you. Further discussion? All right, I will call the question there. If I could have you read that again, corporate officer, please. Karen, you need to unmute, please.
Sorry.
Thank you.
That staff write a letter to invite Flow Metals Corp to a meeting of council to explain their project and address the concerns as outlined in the report of the Director of Works and Utilities dated April 27th, 2020.
I don't think that's the motion that we have on the floor now, though.
Stop. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Write a letter to invite Flow Metals Corp to a meeting of council to explain their project and address concerns outlined. Does that make sense?
Oh. How does that sound, Richard? Is that what the intent was?
That was my intent.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on this? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, so that carries unanimously. I would like to bring forward another motion. I know that it probably won't go anywhere, but I'm going to bring it forward anyways. And that is that the mining referral notice of work from Flow Metals Corp. Tracking number 1002466696 be opposed. Councillor Carlson, are you seconding this? Thank you. So it's now on the floor for discussion. All right, I don't see anybody with their hands up. I'll just check Councillor Traynor again. All right, so I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Hands up, people. Councillor Trainer, I'm sorry I missed your hand. Are you in favor or opposed? So you're in favor of the the opposition, or not? I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand.
I'm in favor of your motion.
Thank you. So there are 3 of us who are in favor, 4 who are opposed, so that is defeated. Thank you. Okay, any other motions to come forward on this particular agenda item? All right, thank you. So now we move back to the development reports. Is that correct, Corporate Officer? Thank you. Councillor Carlson.
I know, sorry, we were moving on. I just had this thought. So will a letter of any sort go to the applicant from the District of Summerland, or will we simply invite them to come and speak to us? Will the word concerned be in there, or is that something, sorry that I might have missed that.
Anthony, is this something that you or Chris could address, please?
I think through Chair, Madam Mayor, Karen, can you speak to the motion? I believe there was reference to sending a letter to the proponent as well.
The first motion was to send a letter to the Ministry of Mines, Energy and Petroleum Resources outlining concerns. That's one. The other one as amended was defeated. That was the one to oppose until the concerns is outlined. And then the third one that actually was carried was that staff write a letter to invite Flow Metals Corp to a meeting. So that letter would outline the concerns in the report.
Okay. Thank you. I just want to ensure that some communication goes to the company and they understand the concerns that we are raising to the province, so that we don't miss that piece. So I don't need to make another motion.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Carlson. All right, so on to item 8.1, Development Variance Permit DVP 20-001 at 17-6709 Victoria Road South. Over to our CAO and Director of Development Services, I guess.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. And I've got the screen shared. Hopefully everyone can see that. Just want to confirm that before I start presenting. A couple of nods of the heads. Perfect. Thank you. So the first item, 8.1, is related to Council considering an application for development variance permit to legitimize the height of 2 existing retaining walls at the Sedona Heights development on Victoria Road South. The subject property is designated low density residential within the official community plan, and within the zoning bylaw it is zoned as residential estate lot zone, RD3, as you can see up on the screen. And up on the screen you'll see these the information is outlined in the report, but we're intending on providing this information to council that will be attached in the reports moving forward, but in the presentations, just to provide some context in terms of the subject property and surrounding area and the various land use designations that apply to it. The development permit areas don't actually touch the subject property. You can see on the screen the surrounding environmental areas, environmental and watercourse to the north, east and southwest of the subject property. The subject property is located within the Sedona Heights neighborhood. As I said, the Bareland Strata development. The applicant proposes to legitimize the height of 2 walls that we've outlined in the report. The first wall, wall A, you can see up on the screen. The maximum height of a retaining wall prescribed in the zoning bylaw is 1.2 meters. The intent of the height is to restrict, prevent construction of monolithic walls that disrupt the form and character of a neighborhood. Retaining wall A, as you can see on the screen, is 1.7 meters in height, representing a requested variance of 0.5 or half a meter. The second retaining wall B is 2.4 meters in height and representing a variance request of 1.2 meters. And you can see their construction is stalled subject to the outcome of this application. I'll go into a bit more detail shortly about each of the walls. The driveway access bylaw that the district has requires that driveways adjoining public highways receive district approval prior to their construction. This provides staff with an opportunity to identify any additional development requirements, including variances, to ensure that the driveway complies with the district's regulations and can accommodate emergency vehicles, for example. The driveway access bylaw, however, does not require municipal approval or specify regulatory provisions for driveway accessing private roads within Bareland strata developments. The permit drawings dated October 17, 2018 for the new single-family dwelling at lot 17, 6709 Victoria Street indicated a straight driveway. And you can see this on the next image up on the screen. The driveway that was built, however, deviates from the approved plans by curving across the property, requiring the 2 retaining walls to support it. You can see on the left-hand side of the screen the approved driveway that was originally intended to accommodate or access the single-family house, and the right-hand side of the screen shows the driveway that was built, requiring the additional curve and grade that triggered the retaining wall that has been constructed in part. In their rationale, the applicant indicated that they chose the curve and length of the driveway to reduce the slope and create a safer access to the road. The intent of the retaining wall height restrictions is certainly to prevent the construction of monolithic walls, as I've outlined earlier, that disrupt the form and character of the neighborhood. Other design considerations that minimize the imposing nature of the walls include location, material, color, and landscaping. That could also be included and considered equally as important, particularly in situations where large retaining walls are necessary. And this, I know the Sedona Heights area has had some history in terms of applications coming forward to council after construction and non-compliance. And this just gives you a snapshot of some of the existing walls in the area for council's consideration as part of this application. The top left-hand side of the screen is directly adjacent to the east of the subject retaining wall. That retaining wall, the rock retaining wall there, shows the 1.2 meter high and step back retaining wall in compliance with the zoning bylaws. So you can see there a variety of retaining walls in this subdivision. With regards to retaining wall A, the notations on the approved building permit plans dated October 17, 2018 noted that a building permit would be required for this retaining wall and that the maximum height of any proposed retaining wall would be 1.2 meters. Initial inspections of the retaining wall or the building under construction failed to mention the construction of this retaining wall. Although both retaining walls at the subject property exceed the maximum height requirements established by the zoning bylaw, the discrete siting of this wall does not, in staff's opinion, visually disrupt the form and character of the Sedona Heights neighborhood. And as a result, staff are recommending that council support this variance request. So retaining wall B is obviously a little different. The requirement for the subject variances were identified by district staff at time of final inspection for the single family home on December 13th, 2019. Staff recognized the significant financial contribution certainly made to construct the driveway with the retaining wall. However, in staff's opinion, cannot support the variance for this wall, in that it may be possible, and certainly is possible, to design a wall system that would respect the maximum height of the retaining walls provided in the zoning bylaw. There appears to be no attempt to provide design interventions to soften the appearance of the wall with landscaping or some of the other measures I've outlined earlier in the presentation. So council has the option of approving or denying both walls with this application together or individually. Should council deny the request to the variance, the owners will be required to find an alternative solution to comply with the bylaw or submit an alternative design for council and staff's consideration. Thank you, Madam Mayor. The staff recommendation, up on the screen, is, as we've noted in the report, and open to any questions.
Thank you, Anthony. I just wanted to ask one question. Did you say that staff is supporting retaining wall A?
Correct.
So did the staff report change? Because mine reads that that both of them are being denied by, the recommendation is denial by staff. I think we just saw that a minute ago on your screen too.
You're correct. In the report, it outlines the concerns from staff that both applications be denied. I think my point in the report was, should council be willing to support one of the retaining walls, for example, the impact on the surrounding neighborhood by the wall A is considered not as considerable as retaining wall B.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that clarification.
Thank you.
Okay, corporate officer.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to point out that there was a piece of correspondence submitted for this particular application from Clinton on Victoria Road South.
Thank you. Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Took a drive up there yesterday to have a look at this project, and it looks like it was quite an extensive, lots of work put in there to redesign this driveway. At any time, a question through to our CEO, at any time was there a stop work order put on this project?
Thank you. Through the chair, Madam Mayor, not to my knowledge on the retaining wall. Now there is on the retaining wall, obviously, but the single family home did not trigger any stop work orders. So right now there is, but as I outlined in the report, the large retaining wall was identified at the completion of the single family home.
Councillor Barkwell, followed by Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Your Worship. The motion as written in the agenda seems a little bit awkward. Usually the decision or the recommendation, it comes at the end where it says it goes, the development variance permit, blah, 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 zoning bylaw be denied. And then it has this paragraph, the maximum height of a retaining wall as prescribed to be varied for a retaining wall A. And now, is that all part of the proposed motion, or wouldn't that be sort of supposed to be inserted in the middle of the motion, where it's saying that the variance permit to permit a raise of the height, you know, from 1.2 to 1.7 be denied? It's just a little strange here.
Yeah, through the chair, thank you for the question. So the intent there was to make clear that the sections indented come from the zoning bylaw. The application that's in front of staff and council is to vary those two sections of the zoning bylaw. The way we wrote the recommendation was to make it clear that those two in staff's recommendation is that they be denied. So it could be written a number of different ways, but this provides council with the ability, should they support staff's recommendation, to deny both, or as I mentioned earlier, you could split them up and make different decisions on each of the walls.
If I could follow up, so any retaining wall above a certain height, I guess the 1.2 meters, would have to be engineered, have an engineered design and be inspected during time of construction. Obviously that hasn't happened. So if we were to approve these retaining walls, would we be, you know, approving something that potentially wasn't constructed correctly because it was never had any proper inspection?
Through the chair, Your Worship. So we have received a building permit application for the walls with a stamped engineering stamp attached to the plans. We will have to eventually, if council support the variances, then we would need to follow our building permit process, and any retaining wall over that 1.2 meters would require a engineer to sign off on that. So that will be required. We have received some information from the applicant in terms of the wall being engineered, but the authorization of the variance by council, for example, doesn't give approval for the wall to be built as it is. We still require the engineer to come in and submit their drawings and schedules as per the building permit process.
But what about the inspection of the building, like to make sure the rebar was in place before they pour it and things like that? Don't we have to have inspection of that?
So it depends on what we would expect the engineer to sign off on and take liability for the construction of the wall. So it will be up to it would be the responsibility of the engineer to prove and provide their seal to the construction of the wall.
Thank you.
Councillor Patton and then Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a couple issues. When we went back with Anthony's presentation where he showed the yellow house that was in the center of the presentation with the one retaining wall, we have to remember that that was the retaining wall that came to council, where that retaining wall was where lot number 1 was having the issues with lot number 3, where we as a municipality failed to put a stop work order on lot number 3 because the house was over height, and we didn't do a stop work order there. And so it was a cost of, I believe it was around $65,000 for that retaining wall in that respect. Now we've got the same builder has done this again, where when I read, we as a municipality failed to do our due diligence, because it does say that on retaining wall A, that no action was taken for a stop work order on the understanding that an application and certification from a geotech would be forthcoming. So we didn't do our due diligence as a municipality with our building department to stop the project until we got the proper documentation in. So we have and then in the same report that we have from Development Services, it talks about the applicant not realizing that he needed permits for retaining wall in a Bearland strata. This is the same guy. Like, we have such a pattern in Sedona that we are really going to be, with the money that is spent on these retaining walls and in regards to the owner's driveway, and the recourse of that owner is to sue the builder that went ahead and did this. It's the builder that is going and is doing what he wants to do up there. And it seems like we as a municipality in our inspections department, we're not stopping him. We're saying, oh, we trust you, get us that information, and that information never comes. And now we're sitting here deciding some poor guy's fate up there. Are we going to have him remove $80,000 worth of materials and redo it when we could have prevented this a long, long time ago? So I'm on the fence here, but I just wanted to point out that we as a municipality have to take some responsibility in this, because we had the opportunity and we failed to follow through with it. So that was that's my take on what happened here. When I too went up there and took a look at this and seen what. And if we look at the subdivision, we had problems with lot number 1. We've had problems with lot number 3. We've had problems with lot number 14. Now we've got problems with number 17. And number 18 is the person that sent us the letter that indicated that he talked with the builder so that the driveways for both properties could be at the same elevation. And now we're looking to 1.7 meter elevation difference. So anyways, I think we have a bigger problem well, it's a big problem in Sedona, but I don't think our problems are going to end with retaining from up in that subdivision. Thank you.
Councillor Holmes, and then I'd like to say something.
Thank you. Just a question through to the CIO. So if we deny both these variants or one air variance, what's the options for the owner? What would they have to do?
So through the chair, Your Worship, the applicant will be required to either take down the wall and comply with the zoning bylaw. If it's the wall on that accommodates the driveway, that will obviously have an impact on the driveway grade. They would have to look at the original design for the driveway to access the garage at the top of the hill. So if council did deny the variance, the applicant would have to work with staff to come up with an alternative solution to either meet the bylaw. If they had to come up with a design that triggered another variance to the bylaw with an alternative design, then we'd have to come back and bring that to council for your consideration as well, if it was in conflict with the zoning bylaw.
And to follow up, if I may, and if we approve the variances, but how can we send I guess a message that what options are there for providing any kind of punishment so that to discourage these sort of things from just going ahead again?
Yeah, I think to that point, I think to Councillor Patton's point as well, there's a fair bit of work we need to do around process and procedure, which will certainly help on some of these examples. Construction without a permit, that's obviously started here, has the ability for double permit fees, I believe, within our building bylaw. So there's some additional fines that can be put in place as well if council supported the application and it continued in its in the retaining walls continued in their current form.
Okay, Councillor Holmes. Okay. What I wanted to ask you, Anthony, is I believe in the early part of your presentation, you mentioned that the driveway was supposed to be straight, and they decided to go ahead with the curved driveway, which was not the plan that was submitted and the plan that was approved by our development services. And then because of that change, that precipitated the building of the retaining walls, again without approval. So well, I'm not going to discuss this, it's not on the floor yet, but I just wanted to ask if that was the case, that it was only because of the change in the driveway configuration that we find ourselves in this position. So going ahead, firstly, with changing the driveway without approval from our development services. Is that how it happened?
Yes. So through Chair, Madam Mayor, the straight driveway certainly eliminates the need for the swooping retaining wall, I guess, if you want to call it that, along the street. So the straight wall may have triggered, again, I don't have the actual designs for what would be accommodated with that straight driveway, that may have triggered a higher retaining wall than the zoning bylaw required along the east property line, for example. But you are correct, the lengthening of the driveway and the angle that it's designed certainly did trigger the large retaining wall on the street side.
Okay, thank you for that. And then a follow-up question to that is the installation of the driveway, whether or not it is according to plan, is that something that is inspected?
So the driveway bylaw that we currently have does not require driveway approval from the district for strata developments. So once you're within
Right.
the strata property of
Right.
the larger development, they're on their own. If it was a fee simple subdivision, then any new access to a district road would require the driveway access, and we'd assess grades and drainage and all those various things.
Right. So not requiring that approval meant there would be no building inspection that would follow in due course.
Correct. With
during the
strata
construction.
developments, the engineering requirements are a little less than what they would typically be for a fee simple subdivision. They're generally
Okay.
designed to good engineering practices, not to the bylaw standards. So there's a bit more flexibility in a strata in terms of what can be
Okay.
designed for infrastructure, because it's not the district's infrastructure, it's the strata corporation's infrastructure.
Okay. So given that information, perhaps, I mean, I totally concur with what Councillor Patton has brought forward, but if the initial error, whether it was an error in judgment or whatever it was, to change the driveway configuration precipitated the need for the retaining walls, that didn't require building inspection or inspection by our building department, then I'm not sure that we necessarily would have known about the retaining wall going in. So I can understand why there wasn't necessarily a stop work order put in place initially.
Yes, so I think just to follow up on that, I think the subdivision obviously goes back a fair number of years, and hillside development in every community goes through its difficulties. Ideally, when the subdivision application is made, there's a lot grading plan and building envelopes identified and future retaining walls identified at that subdivision stage. And at that stage, you can clearly identify if there's retaining walls needed, what the heights are, and deal with any potential variances in advance as opposed to coming back later on. So during construction, things happen, but the higher you get into those hillsides, the more important it is to ensure we have good grading plans, and we can see where some of the topographical changes are, especially with regrading that goes on in those areas. So lots of subdivisions throughout BC, lots of lessons learned through this one, and lots of things that we definitely want to build on moving forward.
Thank you. Councillor Barkwell?
Yes, could Anthony put the two lot layouts side by side again? He had a slide we don't have, how it was going to be and how it is actually.
Okay, so on the left, is that the correct image, Councillor Barkov?
Yeah.
On the left is the existing driveway. On the right is on the left was the original approval. On the right is the driveway that's being constructed. You can see the retaining wall along the street.
And so the position of the house or the orientation of the house or anything like that hasn't changed, just the
No, correct. The same grade difference needs to be made up from the street to the driveway entrance.
Thank you.
Councillor Trainer?
Just to follow up on what Councillor Barkle just asked, in the report it says that they chose to, like, they submitted the straight driveway plan, but then they chose to do a curved driveway instead because they wanted to create safer access. Is that in fact true? Is that style of driveway, the bend, is that safer than what was originally planned? Does anybody know?
Through the chair, your worship, the driveway grade is certainly less because there's a longer distance to get up to the garage. So I can't speak to the curves and the access down to the road because it is a lot sharper than coming directly down the straight driveway. But the grade is certainly not as steep with the driveway that's there now versus what likely would have been in place to create that straight driveway.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Going up there and looking, that's the first option or the first design, the straight driveway. The steepness, you'd have to own a four-wheel drive vehicle for even the summer months. Like it would be extremely steep. The curved driveway at least gives you more of a gradual incline and decline. And the entrance to the street is not a lot different, but you know, that's from just going up there and having a look. Thank you.
Any further questions before we have a Councillor Holmes?
Is there any way we can, the main concern regarding wall B is the aesthetics, that it doesn't fit in with the community, within the neighborhood, is that correct?
Correct.
So is there any way we can not deny the variance, but approve it, but have some sort of conditions that they have a wall that conforms with the neighborhood character?
Through the chair, your worship, if council provide that direction, likely the height of the retaining wall behind the block walls would still be required. So the height variance would have to still come back to council. But if you gave some direction to provide additional beautification or to that wall, then we would bring that back to council before you made a decision on the variance for the retaining wall height. The height of the wall, and I'll maybe put the screen back up again just so it's clear what we're talking about with the wall. You can see I'll increase the size there. So the height of the wall, the concrete wall behind the lock blocks will likely stay the same. It's just the facade of that will be altered with a different material, perhaps similar materials to the rocks and the environment that exists in that area with some of the other retaining walls I showed earlier.
I think Councillor Patton had his hand up first, and then Councillor Van Elfen.
So I kind of like that Councillor Holmes is going. And I think that if we talk about a form and character in regards to how that retaining wall is going to look, I think it would be prudent to have the developer create the same facade of a outcropping as they did in Peachland on that retaining wall that they put in, and then now it looks like a rock. It looks like an outcrop of rock on how they did shotcrete on that retaining to make it look like rock. And I think, but I truly believe that it's the developer that we have to direct to do this, and not the homeowner. It's the developer that we have the issue with. I truly feel for the homeowner, as I did for the homeowner on lot 1, because to me, it's they're going by the expertise and by the opinion of the developer and the builder that's creating their forever home, and now they're in the position dealing with what's happened here. But I would agree with Councillor Holmes that there is a way that you could make that look like original rock that was there. We would still have to deal with, of course, the overheight, but with the form and character, with the form of it and the look of it, it could be mediated quite easily.
Councillor Van Alphen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with Councillor Holmes and Councillor Patton. There could be something done with that wall to enhance the appearance to the form and character of the rest of the subdivision, and the wall above it, you know, could be, you know, with some landscaping, some trees growing in front of that retaining wall may help break that up. The only other concern I would have is there a comprehensive drainage plan for that cul-de-sac? Because the way the original driveway was designed and now the way this driveway is configured, is it going to create a drainage issue for the neighbor below? You know, is that a possibility? There's no catch basins at the bottom of the driveway, you know, just something else to be concerned about. But I would be in agreement to enhance the facade.
Anthony, did you want to address the drainage matter that
Certainly.
Councillor Van Alphen raised?
Certainly. So I think we would require that drainage be included in the eventual design of the retaining wall and the finalization of that driveway. As I said, the standards that they have to develop to not as detailed as the district bylaw if it was a fee simple parcel, but any drainage would need to be kept on site as per our bylaw. So it's something we can certainly review with our engineering department, but it's my understanding that the original design was intended to retain all drainage on site.
Okay, if there are no more questions of of Anthony, could I have someone bring forward, I guess we should do these individually in terms of retaining wall A and retaining wall B. So could I have someone bring forward either the recommended motion or a change to the motion, please? Councillor Holmes?
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I just have another question, if I may, regarding
please.
retaining wall. Yeah, regarding retaining a wall A. So what is the main concern about that wall? If it's not the character, because you don't really notice it. You need to turn your mic on.
Please
Anthony.
unmute.
Okay, I'm just going to share my screen again so I have the image up on the screen for council. So you can see the retaining wall on the right-hand side of the screen. Again, the ability to get that height out of a retaining wall could have been achieved through stepping the wall up. So you can see the distance from the I guess the base of the trees, for example. You could create a 1.2 meter high retaining wall, step the wall in 1.2 meters and get up to the height of that wall right now. So an alternative design could have achieved the same result without unreasonably impacting both properties. As you can see, there's a decent distance between the two properties that could have accommodated a compliant retaining wall.
Councillor Patton, did you have another question? I noticed that your mic is not muted, but
No,
I'm not sure.
No, thank you, Madam Mayor. Our CAO.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So if there are no more questions, I don't see anyone hands raised. Could someone bring forward the first motion there, or an amendment to that first motion, please? Anyone? Nobody wants to make a motion. Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would put forth a motion that the developer, I'm not sure if that wall is on strata property or if that wall that is being constructed is on lot number 17. That would be wall number B, I believe. But what I would like to see is the developer create a facade on the wall to mimic a natural outcropping of rocks to blend in with the rest of the subdivision. And then once that is done, then come back to us for a variance on height.
Councillor Barkley, or Holmes, you're seconding?
I will, but I have a question about that.
Okay.
Can we do that? Can we direct that it's the developer and not the homeowner that does something?
Through the chair, your worship. So because it's a strata, we'd have to deal with the strata corporation as well. But I think the direction that we're getting certainly will involve discussion with the developer, because I know they're, from what I understand, they're still involved with the development as well. So ultimately, at the end of the day, any non-compliance comes back to the property owner, which is either the owner of the strata unit or the strata corporation, depending on the location of the wall. And that's where, unfortunately, in this circumstance, the consequence lies. But we will, to the best of our ability, work with the developer and homeowner as best as we can to rectify based on the direction we get from council.
Corporate officer, you had something, you had your hand raised. Did you want to add something?
You're both on mute.
Karen, you've just muted yourself. There, thank you.
Is this related to retaining, excuse me, retaining wall A or retaining wall B, the facade?
Go ahead, Councillor Patton.
Retaining wall B, Ms. Needham. And I guess our CEO is absolutely correct. It is and Councillor Holmes, it is the homeowner that is ultimately responsible on this, and it is a civic matter, a civil matter between him and the developer. So I do feel that I would still like to see something done with that wall. And if it's the owner that has to deal with the developer, then so be it. Or the strata, whichever the case may be.
If I could just clarify then, Councillor Patton, you're proposing that the DVPB approved with that particular condition that you mentioned about the change in the facade?
I would like to. I would like the facade to be taken care of first, and then come back with variance for height. That way, we get the facade taken care of, and then we can deal with the height issue once we can do them at the same time. I just feel that we need to do something with the facade, and getting the facade done, then we can deal very easily with the over height wall.
Thank you for that. Councillor Traynor.
I totally understand where you're coming from, Councillor Patton, but would they want to put money into redoing the wall, or not redoing it, but fixing it and making it look nice if it has to then come back for approval? Like what happens if it comes back and then we reject it and they just spent all this time and energy? So I don't know if they would, how that would go over. I know where you're coming from. It's a good intention. I'm wondering how we communicate that.
Yeah, if I may, Madam Mayor. And that could go, that could go through our CAO. I'm just thinking that it's a lot probably more cost effective than if we deny this and then they're going to have to come back with some sort of redesign, or they're going to have to come back with something to us anyway if we go with staff and deny the height variance.
Through Chair, Your Worship, if the direction is from council to refer this back to staff to work with the property owner and developer to create an alternative design for that wall, I think the intention would be to create that design and bring the design back. We wouldn't want them doing any work until we brought the design back to council for council to approve or not, and then go from there. So I think if that's the intent, Councillor Patton, to come up with an alternative design before you consider or feel comfortable with the height of the wall, then it will be designed. We'll bring back some plans and any illustrations that'll help show what the design of that wall would look like.
Councillor Patton?
Thank you. That was brilliant. You read my mind. Thank you so much.
Okay, so can we just make a kind of an overall amendment to this, Karen, or do we need to start from scratch and vote this one down and then bring forward another one? Thank you for your thoughts. Please unmute.
My recommendation would be that we're dealing with recommendation number two right now, and that council actually pass the resolution if you choose, and that then you could say, if the resolution is denied, and that staff work with the developer to come up with an alternative design for presentation of a plan for the facade using material that better reflects the aesthetics of the neighborhood. The other option, and I'll defer to Anthony on this, is that instead of denying, you could defer. Would that potentially be better?
Yeah, through Chair, I think denying it, there's a time frame on which, if once it's denied, then there's I believe a 6-month time frame before they can come back. So if the intention's for further work to be done before council feel comfortable dealing with it based on the direction for a redesign, then I'd recommend that council defer it or refer it back to staff for the redesign process as Karen outlined.
Okay, that sounds okay with you, Councillor Patton?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. So Corporate Officer, I'll have you, given those thoughts, I'll have you read that yet again, and then we'll know what we're talking about here.
So that development variance permit application for Strata Lot 17, District Lot 440 and 2196, ODYD Strata Plan, KAS 3196, to vary the following sections of the zoning bylaw of the maximum height of a retaining wall is prescribed in section 5.5.2 for retaining wall B, be referred back to staff, and that staff work with the developer to come up with an alternative design for presentation of a plan to council for the facade using material that better reflects the aesthetics of the neighborhood.
All right.
Okay.
Councillor Barkle, you have your thumbs up, but that's not a hand up. Okay. So is there further discussion on this motion? All right, I will call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Patton. And then regarding retaining wall A. Resolution? Councillor Patton?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think retaining wall A being from 1.2 to 1.7 or being 20 inches higher. I feel as Councillor Van Alpen spoke that if there was some shrubs or something there, it would be more pleasing to the eye, but it's really not affecting, it affects the neighbor where the garage is, but I don't feel that it's unsightly by any means. So I would move forward that the variance of, or to vary 1.2 to 1.7 meters be approved.
Seconder? Councillor Van Alphen? And discussion on this one, please. My concern with the retaining wall A, actually I guess both of them, but really the retaining wall A, which seems to be the one that is more problematic, is in the staff report, or at least in the slides that Anthony presented to us, there was a point that they failed to mention construction of the retaining wall A. Personally, I'm getting a little, well, more than a little, tired of this continuing to happen, development, construction, even building of a single retaining wall, proceeding and then asking for forgiveness later. You know, it's kind of, to me, it's a been there, done that scenario, and I'm not particularly comfortable with it. Those are my comments on this particular motion. Councillor Barkwell?
Yes, I'm with the mayor here on this. Anybody who's ever picked up a hammer knows that a retaining wall has to get approval if it's over 1.2 meters, has to be engineered, has to have inspections. And it's blatant disregard here. It's willful and intentional disregard of the regulations, and somewhere we got to draw the line. So I'll be voting against this variance.
Thank you, Councillor Barkwell. Councillor Holmes, and then Councillor Van Alphen.
I guess my question is, if we levy the fine, the maximum fine that we're able to, that's in our bylaw, whether it's the double of fees or how much of a deterrent is that, and how much of a punishment would that be?
Through Chair, Your Worship, it'll be dependent on the value of the construction of the wall. So I don't have the details in front of me in terms of what that value would be, but it would be, the permit value is equivalent to the cost of construction of that wall. So at the end of the day, not a significant amount. Again, estimate is roughly, building permit fees, roughly 1% the value of the construction, without looking at the fees and charges bylaw. So I wouldn't see it as a considerable fine with the doubling of those fees, but it is a mechanism that the district has where construction happens without a permit.
Councillor Holmes?
Just to follow up, then maybe we can send that to our building procedures committee to review those fees, or those fines as well, so that they serve their purpose.
Councillor Van Alphen.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I don't know if we deny it, it's going to be a hardship. It's, it's definitely a hardship for the homeowner. And I don't think it's necessarily all his fault by any means. As a developer, I agree with Councillor Holmes. I'd like to see a fine levied. I know it's going to be minimal, but at least it's a start. But to penalize the homeowner, like he was going on the professional opinion of the developer, the builder. It's, if I'm not mistaken, it would be the builder, developer, I think, that had the permit out, if I'm not mistaken. Or was it the homeowner or the developer that took out the permit?
The developer.
Yeah, so it's, the homeowner is going on the expertise of the developer. I like I say, I'd like to see the fine implemented. And, I think that wall could be softened to some degree with some landscaping to satisfy the neighbors and the strata council. And I'd leave it at that. Thank you.
Councillor Barkwell?
Yeah, I understand that the concern that maybe it's punishment visiting on the homeowner when it should be the builder who was responsible. But I think the homeowner has recourse against the builder, and that would be serving its purpose then. If it might be not the most direct route and the most preferable route, but I think it would make people sit up and particularly the builders take notice. Because if I was in that homeowner situation, I wouldn't take it lying down. I would be dealing with the builder.
Councillor Patton?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just looking at the colored photos that came in with our package, actually I'm on the public side of the agenda. When you take a look at the wall where it looks to be the 1.7 meters is actually on the driveway side of the adjacent house. When you take a look at the wall that's of wall A that's running along the neighbor's driveway where all the dirt is, that wall then goes and so the only place that you could really do anything aesthetically would be in the dirt on the front. And I don't know what the height is there, but I would assume that we're pretty close to 1.2 meters from the top of the wall to the top of the dirt there. They may be able to put another retaining wall 1.2 meters out and another 1.2, which then would soften up that corner. But no matter what we do, we still have an issue on the neighboring property's driveway that could be 1.7 meters that is really going to adversely affect that neighbor with that retaining if we deny this.
Anyone else? I know that Councillor Van Elfen before had some issues or questions about the drainage, so that needs to be taken into consideration as well, I guess. Councillor Barkwell, you have your hand up again?
Yeah, I'm thinking about the Councillor Patton's comments, and I think that Anthony had sort of suggested the stepping design. I would assume that if we denied the variance, that then they would have to come back with a plan that's acceptable to all parties, that would be a reasonable and conforming kind of a layout. And they're still looking for approval on retaining wall B, so I would expect that they would be in a cooperative frame of mind.
Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So perhaps if I may change the motion for wall A to be the same as wall B. Is that doable, Ms. Needham?
Yes, I can change that to be referred to staff. and brought back to council at a future meeting.
I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion on this? Do we have to vote on the amendment, or can we just look at this as a brand new motion?
Brand new motion is fine.
Good, thank you. Okay, so I will call the question then. All in favor? Opposed? None are opposed, so that carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Patton.
Madam Mayor?
Yes?
There is the third motion on this particular file as well.
Oh, yes, thank you. I'm having troubles getting this larger all of a sudden. Okay. The third motion, that staff be directed to investigate retaining wall standards and report back to council with recommendations for amendments to bylaw standards. Councillor Carlson and Councillor Patton, thank you. Further discussion on this third resolution. Councillor Patton?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Engineers and geoscientists have came out with a retaining wall guideline for registered professionals. And the case being at 1.2 meters is considered landscaping, that if a 1.2 meter wall fails, the damage that it ensues isn't life-threatening in most cases. What the engineers and geoscientists have said, even with a tiered wall now, you could go to a maximum of 10 feet or 3 meters. Once you hit 10 feet, then you would require geotechnical and structural engineering on all retaining. So if it was a monolithic pour at 3 meters or 10 feet, you'd need a geotech and a structural engineer. If you were to do 1.2 meter tiered walls, as soon as you hit your third wall, then you would require geotech and structural engineering. So I think that the standards for the for retaining walls are already there. I think what we just need to do is ensure that the registered professionals that are being engaged on these walls are following the guidelines of the engineers and geoscientists.
A question for you, Anthony. Given what we've just heard from Councillor Patton, do our bylaws already speak to those specific standards, or do we need to review those with the intent of bringing them up to or aligning them to those standards?
Yeah, I think we need to make sure there is compliance. I think we've got some work to do as council know around our building bylaw. So that is a bylaw that's going to be coming through the development committee over the next couple of months. But with regard to retaining wall height, what we have right now in the zoning bylaw is something that I think staff need to have a look at. Is the 1.2 meter height appropriate based on what Councillor Patton said with regards to some of the professional engineering requirements that may allow a higher wall. So I think the review that we do and bring back to council would be specific to the zoning bylaw, and bring back some options for council to consider as well.
Thank you. Councillor Barkwell?
Yeah, at what point do we get involved in the what you refer to as the form and character? Certainly you're right in saying that it's going to be a bigger issue in the future. Steeper grades and less easily developed land is the way of the future here. I mean, if we want to save the farmland, then we develop the hills, and only the hills that are not environmentally sensitive, I will add. So yeah, and that means more retaining walls and more massive things, and how do we, sort of control that as far as appearance is concerned?
Yeah, so good question. So through the chair, Your Worship, we do have development permits as tools that can regulate form and character. So within a new subdivision, we certainly need to look at updating our hillside development guidelines. Within those hillside development guidelines, they could speak to how retaining walls may look, certain materials, those sort of things that can be addressed. So the zoning bylaw will really determine the height. It won't go into design. Where you're going to deal with those design issues are through development permit area guidelines. So again, they can be through hillside development guidelines or through a neighborhood specific area plan that we may see in a new development area if that comes along. So a few different tools that are available to deal with the form and character of those walls, because they will come forward as we go up into the hillsides. They are difficult to deal with, but as I said earlier, the subdivision process will ideally identify those tricky areas before the first house gets built.
So that's not part of what you're proposing here with this, is it?
Yeah, I think it captures everything. the retaining wall. I think we've got to look at the zoning bylaw and the height, but also the hillside guidelines, which are on staff's radar to look at as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barkwell. Any other discussion? Or questions? I guess we're not quite at discussion. If there are no questions, could I have someone bring that resolution forward or an amendment to that resolution? Councillor Barkwell? Oh, sorry. You've unmuted yourself.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's kind of my visual clue. Councillor Holmes.
I believe Councillor Carlson already brought it forward and Councillor Patton seconded. You're muted, Mayor. You're muted.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes, for reminding me of that. Further discussion on this? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None, so that carries unanimously. Thank you. It is almost 9 o'clock, so we're at the magic 3 hours. So I believe, and please let me know, Ms. Needham, if that we need to have a resolution to continue on this meeting or to defer to another time. Is that correct?
That's correct, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So what is the wish of council? Actually, Councillor Holmes.
We have quite a lot to get through here. I was just wondering if it's possible to meet again, rather than have to wait 2 weeks. Could we do this another time this week? Would that be possible? Because we'll be here all night by the looks of this agenda.
I guess there's the possibility of deferring some items too, but Councillor Carlson, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, my babies are asleep, but I'm good to go till 10, but no later than that.
Councillor Barkwell?
Sorry. Yeah, I would suggest we go until 10, and we may or may not finish. If we haven't finished by then, can we do as Councillor Holmes says and suggested, and adjourn to Wednesday night at 6 o'clock, something like that?
Councillor Trainer.
My preference would be if we're going to go to 10, I don't think we'll get everything done before 10, so we might as well just take a chunk of these and just move it to Wednesday if we can. I'd rather stop now than go for 4 hours.
Anybody else want to weigh in? Councillor Van Elfen?
I agree with Councillor Trainer. I'd prefer to, and Councillor Holmes, to defer this to another date. Because we're not going to get through it all.
Madam.
Okay, could I have someone put a resolution on the floor then? I will say that Wednesday evening does not work for me, but certainly the acting mayor, whomever that is, I have no clue, could chair the meeting. Councillor Barkwell.
Could we have a discussion as to what time and date might work for everybody then? If we, assuming we adjourn to a different time without carrying on.
Councillor Trainer?
Can we defer this, is it possible, to next Monday at 6 o'clock? I don't know if that's too far for people or not, but we're used to meeting on Mondays, so might work.
How does May the 4th sound for people? Councillor Holmes?
Yeah, maybe just through the CEO. Is there anything that's time sensitive that we should, that can't wait a week?
I know they're all fairly, they're the only one that's been held up since the, I believe it was the March 23rd council meeting that was deferred is the next item. I know the, again, depending on council's decision on that retaining wall, the property owner there has been very keen to begin construction of that wall if the variance is approved. The other ones, not that they aren't urgent, can certainly wait another week for council decision.
Councillor Trainer?
That next one, I don't know if I should say this or not, but it looks relatively straightforward. We could do that one and then move the rest until next Monday, which is May the 4th. Make that motion, if that works.
I'll get back to you in just a second, Councillor Trainer, for the motion. I just want to go to Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, I was just going to second Councillor Trainer's motion. We could deal with this one and then carry on the rest for Monday at 6 o'clock next week.
Fantastic. So we have a motion on the floor now then. Does further discussion on this, does that work for everyone? Councillor Carlson's nodding her head, okay. All right, so all in favor then? And none opposed, so let's carry on with 8.2. Development variance permit DVP 20-003 at 9685 Ager Street. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. So this application is to consider, or for council to consider, a request to increase the maximum height of retaining wall from 1.2 meters to 4.5 meters to facilitate the construction of an addition to the rear of the existing building. The subject property is designated medium industrial.
Oh, pardon me.
Within the OCP, and current zoning is M2 heavy industrial. The applicant proposes to build a retaining wall to increase the usable site area along the southeast corner of the property to facilitate the construction of a 400 square meter raw metal storage addition to the existing business. The maximum height of the retaining wall in the zoning bylaw, as you're aware, is 1.2 meters. At its highest point, the proposed retaining wall is 4.5 meters, representing a 3.3 meter variance that's being requested in front of council. You can see on the screen in gray, the location of the retaining wall, the highest point being 4.5 meters in height. And just a couple of sections showing the location of the wall within the north section. The east section and east wall elevation is where the height goes up to its maximum at 4.5 meters. And then the south section and south elevation is it steps down, showing a maximum height of 1.5 meters. You can see up on the left-hand side of the screen, the image from the top where the retaining wall is not visible. On the right-hand side of the screen, next to the existing building at the back of the property, is where the retaining wall is being proposed. You can see the significant grade difference, which is largely the reason for staff support of the application. So really, in staff's review, no considerable impact or unreasonable impact on the neighbouring properties. It's there to accommodate the grade that exists behind the property. This is a business that is looking to expand, and the extension to the retaining wall or the increased height certainly supports that without impacting the adjacent properties, and is certainly will result in a great addition for the district of Summerland and allow the business to expand. So the variance application is being requested for approval. Staff are recommending that council support the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Personally, I think it's fantastic to hear, especially in this time, a business that is looking at expanding and following the proper procedures and getting a significant retaining wall in place. So kudos to the applicant. Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Question through to our CAO. Is this a joint project between the two property owners?
Through Chair Worship, no, there's been some significant regrading done, as you can see in that photo with the Ripley Steel property directly to the south. The retaining wall is being applied for by the owner of the property on the lower side, but I believe they've been in partnership with some of the regrading that's had to occur between the property lines.
Go ahead, Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to put the motion on the table, if I may. The development variance permit application for DL 439 ODYD Plan 218 to increase the maximum height of a retaining wall prescribed in section 5.5.2 of the zoning bylaw from 1.2 meters to 4.5 meters be approved.
Thank you, Councillor Van Elfen. Seconded by Councillor Holmes. Further discussion? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, so that carries unanimously. Councillor Traynor, you were right. That was a quick and easy one. Corporate Officer.
I'd just like to ensure that we pass a motion if we are going to adjourn the meeting, just that,
Yes.
okay, that we adjourn and reconvene on Monday, May 4th at 6 p.m.
Thank you. I have a question for you. Do you need to go to the public comment again, or because we're adjourning the meeting short, there's no need to do that again?
Right. What we're doing, Madam Mayor, is simply stopping the meeting, and then we'll reconvene next week.
Okay, thank you. Could I have someone bring forward a resolution to adjourn and then to reconvene on May the 4th at 6 p.m., please? Councillor Holmes, thank you. Councillor Traynor is seconding. All in favor? And none are opposed, so that carries. Thank you very much. And a resolution, oh no, never mind. That covers that, the resolution to adjourn. Thank you very much, and